Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining TK right here on another episode of Working the Dash with TK. I am so excited right now that we are together here one more time on this live platform. And tonight, the church girl meets the corporate world. And tonight, we are going to be sharing in overcoming the imposter syndrome. You may or may not have heard about it, but we definitely want to jump into this conversation. And guess what? We have an awesome guest that will be joining us this evening from also another side of the corporate arena. And we're going to welcome her just shortly. But right now, if you would do me this favor, just like, share, and love this broadcast. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to jump into this great conversation, whether you're driving in from work, whether you're working out. Go ahead and like, share, and love this post and love this particular conversation. It is going to be exceptional tonight because we're going to be talking about dealing with the person who you see as a fraud. Oh yes, that's right, you as a fraud. And that's really just so paradoxical. And so we want to deal with that this evening. So we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity just to jump in. Listen, while you're cooking dinner, go ahead, share this post while you are, again, exercising, taking that walk. Share this post. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to join this awesome conversation. If you have questions tonight about the imposter syndrome, if you actually want to contribute to the conversation, throw your comments over there. We want to make sure that we acknowledge each and every one of you who are coming in. Thank you so much for joining. I'm excited. We're getting ready to get this conversation started. It's going to pop off and it's going to be phenomenal. Again, I am happy to welcome to this platform, welcome to this stage, my friend, my sister, my colleague, and my corporate my corporate colleague. That's right. She's corporate and she's church. So she's my sister and she's in the corporate arena. I want to welcome to the stage. She is an earned doctor of education. She is none other than Dr. Carla Galbraith. Please welcome her, everyone. Dr. Carla Galbraith is here with us. And tonight we're going to be talking about how to overcome that pesky imposter syndrome. And as we were speaking earlier today, this was just something off the cuff with you joining this conversation because we started speaking about this psychological pattern, which indicates a doubt, a self-doubt in your accomplishments. And it produces this persistent fear of being what I have already called a fraud of oneself because you feel that you're not competent in your achievement. So your level of incompetence, it kind of spins into this ball of being a fraud because you feel as though you are being exposed as such. And so people who experience imposter syndrome often feel like they do not deserve their own successes, and it attributes to they attribute all of their success to the fact that somebody else had something to do with it. They think about external factors, and of course in the church arena we don't use the word luck, but most of the time they'll just say, hey, it was just the lucky stars that allowed me to achieve such greatness. So this phenomenon, it can affect anyone regardless of your level of success, regardless of your subject matter expertise, regardless of your level in the corporate arena. And so tonight, I just want to stop right here, first of all, and ask you to introduce yourself. And then let's just jump into the conversation. You can share just a little bit of your experience about imposter syndrome in your area of work.
Good evening, TK. I am so honored to join you tonight and to just greet all of you out there that have tuned in tonight. I see like and shares, and I mean, it's really picking up. I really appreciate that. We're giving you all the C's tonight. Corporate, colleague, churchy, Carla, you're getting it all tonight. All the C's tonight. Chanel, maybe I didn't pull that out too, but we're not talking about that tonight. But I am Dr. Carla Galbraith. I have a doctorate of education. I am an educator. This is my 27th year in education. Long time K through 12 principal, and now I'm into adult ed. So we like to call that K-16, the 4 years after. But adult ed goes all the way up to, we have some students that are in their 80s. So learning doesn't stop. People learning the language, people that, committed their lives to marriage and their children, finally going back and saying, you know what, I want to go to school for myself. So I'm an educator. I have used my experiences to now start coaching, which really segues into what we do in ministry. In ministry, it's just that we are coaches, we are examples, we're missionaries, we help others. And that's exactly what I do in education. So, this concept is really dear to me. I have a lot of experience with this part on a personal note. So when I heard we were talking about imposter syndrome, the first thing I said is, oh, I love and I hate imposter syndrome. I'm going to go on tonight. I want to listen. I want to be a part of that conversation, because true, let's say, victims of imposter syndrome, part of the resiliency is staying abreast of those trends, staying abreast and knowing, okay, I struggle in this area. Let me make sure I stay on top of my game, because you're using that positive self-talk to keep yourself. I was joking that, oh my God, every year I want to jump off the ledge, and I love the Lord, but I just get upset. And the voices start telling you that you're not good enough. But I'd be the dummy that if I tried to do self-harm, I wouldn't have an arm. Now you're looking stupid, you ain't got no arm. What are you doing? So, but that's me. You find those ways to say, to God be the glory, I am enough, and we're going to do this.
Absolutely. And you touch on something so important about this imposter syndrome, how we have these feelings of self-doubt that we are
Mhm.
not capable or as competent as people may even perceive us. And that's
Right.
something that we all have had to deal with. I absolutely love the fact that I have been able to challenge myself, not compare myself, but even in the level of comparison, you can jump in here as well, Dr. Galbraith. Even
Absolutely.
in comparing who we are, it's important that we do not fall into self doubt and saying that we're not competent as others perceive us to be, because many people are looking up to us, which is just so ironic that people are looking up to us. We're looking up to other people.
That's right.
And then instead of falling into this level of saying, hey, I'm competent, we start comparing down. We start saying what we don't have, when we should actually be comparing upwards by saying, listen, I'm not trying to measure myself in a negative light, but if I
Right.
really want to climb this ladder, if I really want to do more, if I want to be more, these are the things that I'm going to have to accomplish. So let's talk about this self-doubt and why self-doubt is just such a pesky attribute for us to have.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. It is just that. It's a part of being human. It is natural. When you see pretty, shiny things in the store, you want to go see if you can buy it, or you get the alternative. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. But when people that have self doubt, it can turn into a bad situation. Some people will rob, beg, and steal and kill just to be different or just to be better than someone else. And I know we're not talking about those extremes tonight because it goes too far, but that's how Satan works. You take one small thing and he'll blow it all up, or have you thinking you are the only one feeling this way. I'm single. I don't necessarily like being single, but I'm single and I'm successful. But when you look at married people, like, oh my gosh, I wish I had that marriage, or I wish I had someone to go pick up the kids, or someone to go shopping. But there are a whole lot of married people that are really single parents, because outside they look like they have matching suits and matching, I don't know, Nike sweatsuits. But at home, it is not that way. They are not getting along. There's some abuse involved. There's quite a few things going on. So there's nothing wrong with a little bit of competition to make you want to build yourself, because you want to get better. But imposter syndrome is even deeper than that. It's almost like a debilitating self-esteem and a low self-esteem. And it can really affect every part of your life. So let me give you an example. You have self-doubt. So you're thinking, well, I should have put on a little bit of lip gloss or a little bit of something, but I didn't feel like it. And then when you get there, everybody's hair is combed and you got a bonnet on because you didn't feel like it. I mean, that's small, but would it have killed you to do the 5 extra minutes to prepare yourself? That's a little bit of self-doubt. And then some of that depression creeps in, or you're not taking care of your body. Well, I can get by. I don't smell too bad. And then you get there and it's like, I smell kind of bad. I should have jumped in the shower. And that seems very small, but when you don't love yourself or you feel like you're not good enough, it will affect you. In dating relationships, there's nothing wrong with giving someone a chance. We all sometimes fall in love with potential in our 20s. You shouldn't have potential when you're 50. We should already be who we are. But you will cause yourself to sell yourself short and make bad choices in relationships because you felt you weren't good enough. So then any person that shows you any attention, well, she's all right or he's all right, they're not all right. But because you don't love yourself, you settled and did something else. In the corporate arena, I hire people. Some of us sit on interview panels. There have been cases where people have really rooted for someone who is not a candidate, is not prepared, but because, well, their resume looked good and the font and the texture of the paper, but it's like, but did you read that thing? That person is not good enough. But since you have self-doubt, you have more empathy for the underdog. Nothing wrong with the underdog. But when you're trying to hire somebody and they're going to be on that job for the next 20 years, you don't hire the underdog. You need to look at someone's resume. So those are just small examples on how your personal feelings can affect everything around you. And that can be dangerous. I'm not saying being arrogant, but be confident, be educated, and be learned on the decisions you're making, and it affects every part about you. And then people are watching that, as you stated.
Absolutely. And that comes into these are the common symptoms of imposter syndrome is self-doubt and underselling who you are. And then you start doing one thing, you start trying to overachieve, you start to overcompensate for things, you start striving for perfection instead of progress, and you start giving yourself like grades. You start grading yourself on this curve of the F because you're feeling like you have to work so hard to prove your worth to others. When if you can just embrace who you are, if you can just embrace what you are on this earth to do, what your purpose is, what your call is, then you don't have to be consistent and always trying to overachieve or overcompensate for trying to showcase the person that you already are and the person that other people
that
perceive.
perfectionism is really, really tough because no one is perfect. And it can turn into almost a type of OCD. It has to be perfect. It has to be lined up. And you are breaking your neck when it doesn't have to be perfect. And going back to the imposter, your first idea was good enough. So you're doubting your feelings in the first place, trying to make it perfect when sometimes your not good enough is better than everybody else is good enough. You're better. Just trust yourself and trust the process.
That's right. And that's where you start thinking that, oh, I'm a fraud, I can't fail. And then you don't accept feedback well. When you do not understand that feedback is a gift, and it's something that's being given to us to help us constructively build, because everything about us is always being worked on, right? So confidence is consistently being constructed. This thing that we call this self-doubt, we're constantly trying to tear that down. We're always chiseling at it. And listen, I'm listening to the outside. It's spring. I'm listening to what's happening on the outside of even my house in my neighborhood. I'm listening to lawnmowers. I'm listening to the thing that actually, lines the grass. You know what that's letting me know? That things are being cut away so that growth can take place. And that things that are new can have an opportunity to come into fruition. And when you do not allow yourself to say that, hey, I'm worthy and I'm worth it, the imposter syndrome can have such, like you said, such a negative effect on your mental health, on your performance, on your well-being, because you're consistently in competition with something that's not even competing against you.
It's like you're shooting
That is
yourself in the
the
foot
important thing.
sometimes. Yeah, and that can
Yes.
be so dangerous. One of the ways you overcome imposter syndrome is, first of all, preparing yourself. And if you prepared yourself, you have a good head on your shoulders, you've gone to school, you've gone to workshops, you've listened to that constructive feedback, well, then you know, okay, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing. And then when those negative thoughts come, you're able to say, no, 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 that's a negative thought. I know where I am. It's like it's a life journey. Yes, the Lord heals us from everything, but some parts of life, it's a life journey. And you're constantly reaffirming yourself, telling yourself, I am good enough, I am enough. It's like weight loss. You know, you just like sweets. So it's a life journey. Have them, but you don't have to have them all. But just know, okay, let me pace myself before I polish off this whole package of cookies. But same thing with that self-doubt. It's going to come. It's like I always think about the butterflies in your stomach. You could be a world-renowned speaker and orator, but you still get butterflies when it's time to speak. You still get nervous. But after you take a deep breath and take on the reins from the Lord, it's like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to work in my craft and I am going to be just fine. Or they wouldn't have called me. I'm going to be just fine, or they wouldn't have given me this job.
Let me stop
I'm going
right
to
there.
be fine.
Let's stop right there. Let's stop right there and let's deal with that. Most of the time, we're consistently beating ourselves up, saying that we're not enough and saying we don't belong when we're already there.
You're already
Like
there.
we're at the table. We're seated at the table. We're in the boardroom.
Right.
We're in the corporate office.
Your
We're
name
in
came
the
up in the
room.
conversation.
Your name came up in the conversation.
Yeah.
You're the person that they're floating around. You're the person that they're looking for. And you yourself, you have convinced yourself in your own mind overall that you somehow don't belong. If you didn't belong, you wouldn't be there in the first place.
And
so
while
we have
you
to
keep entertaining that, and so now you're at this platform that they invited you to, now you're going to misspeak or say something stupid because you don't feel bad about yourself. Now you're blowing the opportunity instead of thinking through
absolutely.
it, you know?
Or you're passing over other opportunities. So that's a poor mindset. I always often equate that POOR, passing over opportunities regularly. Passing
Like
over
that.
opportunities regularly because you feel that somehow you're not worth the opportunity. And I cannot tell you how many opportunities I have passed over, Dr. C, because I felt like, oh, I'm not good enough for that, but I can give you somebody else who's good enough for it. And I've passed over so many opportunities and I've given them away because the person who thought enough about me to say, you're the person I want, I feel like you should be here, I'm the person who ruined the opportunity by saying, I don't belong here when I'm already there. So one thing we definitely have to do, we have to know that it's important to understand that if you're being asked, if you are invited into that space, even sometimes, we get upset when we're not invited to some spaces, but may I tell you that some spaces are not, all good spaces are not God spaces. And sometimes we're fighting for a space, Maurice. We're fighting for a space, Lavetta and Jakina. We're fighting for these spaces when where we should be working is the crevice. We should be saying, hey, let me work a crevice. Let me go over and occupy a block that's not even occupied. And we're trying to fight for these spaces thinking that, hey, for some reason, I'm not good enough. But yes, you are. You are good enough. And that's why every space is not going to be a space that you're going to
confidence. Right.
Yes.
You're not conceited, but it's confidence. And when you have that confidence, you're trusting it. It's still a faith walk. You don't know if you're just going to start stammering over your words, or you don't even know if that last step on the platform, you are the one that tripped over the spot. I mean, life is going to happen, but at least you're not unintentionally shooting yourself in the foot because you already told yourself you're not good enough. Prepare yourself. And then if you want to be scientific without faith, take a look at your pro and con list. I have this going for me. I have this going for me. I have this going for me. So how dare you, Satan, get in my head and tell me I'm not good enough? I'm just fine and I'm growing. And I'm going to take that
Absolutely.
constructive criticism. I am not a fraud. I have prepared myself, and the degrees is on the wall.
Yes.
It's okay. Now,
Listen.
we do know there are some educated dummies, but most of us are not dumb.
Yeah.
So you have all this education. You're just
Yes.
fine. As I said, I'm not a boss or anything, but I'm 27 years in. I can help somebody. So don't sit up
Absolutely.
there and say, well, I don't know. Yeah, I was a teacher. I can help somebody to learn. For those out there that might be, I know so a lot of people that are going to be vice principals. They don't teach you how to be a vice principal in school. You learn theory, but they don't show you how to do a drug bust when there was a high-speed chase going down the hall. They don't show you how to deal with parents when they want to use bad words and talk about you like a dog. They don't have the talk about you like a dog class in college. That
Yeah.
that's the stuff
Yeah.
you learn. But with that confidence, you can say, hey, let me help you. Here are a few tricks of the trade that I learned that might be able to help you. That's because you're not feeling like you're a fraud. You're like, I'm going to operate in that confidence. One way to overcome those feelings of self-doubt is helping somebody else. That really helps you.
Absolutely. Of that, helping somebody else and being that advocate for those who cannot
Yeah.
otherwise speak up for themselves. And let's just we're gonna funnel this down just a little bit,
Mhm.
Dr. C. Imposter syndrome. We just want to recap that we're trying to talk about these overcoming attributes of overcoming imposter syndrome, because we do know that it does have a negative effect on our overall well-being. So we have to recognize when these feelings come up inside of us, and to know that they are common to our human nature, because we
Yes.
work in different spaces, we're around different people. And sometimes, even though you're an expert in your own area, that's why most people at my job, they say, hey, she's the subject matter expert in financial aid. I
Right.
say, no, I have a lot of experience in financial aid. I may not be an expert, but
I
they're
do
leaning
know how to
on
be broke. Now,
yeah,
what you need to
they're
know
leaning
about
on they're
that.
leaning on your expertise. They're leaning on your expertise. And so,
Yes.
many successful people experience this in their lives. And I just want to make sure that you understand this conversation is not just for people who have low
Mm.
self-esteem.
No.
This does not have anything to do with a socioeconomic status. Imposter syndrome happens in just about every sector of life
It
that
does.
we can be inside of. So when you seek the right support, when you have the right friend group, the right networking, even going to a therapist, sometimes when you can talk out the levels of self-esteem that you have, when you practice self-compassion, you have to have compassion for yourself. The Bible is
Mhm.
specific when it says to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So a lot of times the reason why we cannot successfully love people is because we're not self-compassionate. We set unrealistic goals for ourselves. We are challenged by negative self-talk. And then
Mhm.
what we do with the self-talk, instead of ignoring it or putting it on the back burner, we start engaging in the
Right.
self-talk that's negative. And so what we need to understand in overcoming this self-doubt,
Uh-huh.
it's a challenging process. I'm not saying you can do this overnight, but I am saying you can put some things in motion. And Dr. C, I know you can agree with me that you can put some
Yes.
things in motion, acknowledging and accepting your feelings, just understanding that you have to have the right strategies in place in order to recognize that self-doubt is a natural human response to certain situations that we are placed inside of. But you have to know how to wrangle that self
Mhm.
doubt, and you have to know how to deal with that self doubt inside of the corporate arena, the
Right.
church arena, the family. There are people inside of families who are fighting right now. There's infighting in the family arena because maybe, like you said, there's some
Mhm.
degrees hanging on one wall. There's not degrees hanging on another wall.
You
There's
know, I'm
somebody
gonna
who
jump in right
appears,
there. I was looking at
yes,
causes. I have about 3 good ones, but one of them
oh,
is
great,
family. Some of it, we can't help the family that we're born into. And I know our parents love us. And I'm so glad we have that. Some people are in a different situation where there really is just some craziness going on in the foundation. But some of the behavior is learned from family. When family is super, super critical, Some children absorb that and they feel like they're not enough because they're always in trouble. They're always talking about what I have on. They're calling me names. They're calling me fat. And you are 5, 6, 7 years old absorbing that, always getting a whooping, always in trouble. That can manifest into an adulthood where you expect that I'm going to be in trouble. I'm not enough. My opinion doesn't matter. Or adults grow into competition. Well, let me be the president. Let me try to be the star so I can get my parents' attention. So, family can have a lot to do with that. But as we become adults, you have to educate yourself and understand that. Why am I the way I am? And if it is because of your family, that's okay. You love them, but recognize that root and say, okay, my family didn't mean any harm. They loved us. They were frustrated because we had about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids, and they were just a little bit poor. And so they just kind of yelled all the time because there was frustration. But you don't have to let that turn into why you are the way you are. Also, in family, sometimes you have parents that they had a bad situation. So they were determined, we're not going to be broke, or we're not going to live on this side of town because of my poor childhood. But we're pouring all of those feelings from the parents' childhood onto the children. And then they're growing up thinking, did I do something wrong? Did I do something? Why do I feel this way? I'm not enough. It all manifests into I'm not enough. Or they see the boss now in the corporate as their father, as their mother. Oh my God, are they not going to like the way I did it? Am I going to get a good performance evaluation? Are they going to criticize me just like your parents did growing up? So again, we're going to love our family, but if you understand your family's dynamic, that can help the imposter syndrome, because maybe you were in a situation where the love was not there. They fed you, but the hugs and at a girl or at a boy, it wasn't there. You just
Right.
got talked to. Now you put on this jean skirt and get ready for church. And you're just
Right,
going
right,
and not
right.
feeling
And
validated.
a lot of that
And,
stuff transfers over.
and it
Yeah, it
transfers, it
transfers over
translates
and
into why
it
you are the way
transfers
you
over.
are. Uh-huh. I thought
Absolutely.
about
It
go ahead. Uh-huh.
no, I'm
Oh, I thought
sorry.
about
Finish your thought.
racism and marginalization. And again, we don't want to, get all heavy. We're not talking about any political platform, but the effects of slavery and racism on
Sure.
our people and any people of color is huge. Sometimes you got to have all these degrees and still don't get the promotion. There are people that I trained that became principals before I did. I ended up having to drive an hour away. I commuted for 6 years because I was trying to get other experiences as a principal that I couldn't get in my hometown. And then the people that don't know any better, well, you did something wrong. Here comes that old thinking. You must have did something wrong. You must have, I don't know, tick someone off in the office. Did I? Or was it one of those things where it's a glass ceiling? I always felt like I wasn't good enough, but it was funny when I drive an hour away from home, I was all of a sudden good enough. That makes you wonder, like maybe it wasn't that at all. It was just different doors were closed. I didn't like that those doors were closed, but there were other doors. There were other windows. But you look at the darker skin versus the lighter skin. That can make you, some women of color, girls of color, we don't have naturally long Barbie doll hair, but our little Black girls feel like they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, they're not accepted. And in some cases, if they wear their natural hair, that's against dress code. And this is my natural hair. What are you talking about? That can cause you to feel like I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to have a fulfilling life. I'm never going to be pretty enough. That is huge. It's almost in our DNA, the things that we have to do as people of color. And you and I are women. We can talk about women's issues all day, but men have to deal with it constantly, being treated like you did something wrong when I'm just trying to get to 7-Eleven and get back home. What are you talking about? I don't fit the description of the bad guy you're looking for, or being looked over in jobs as a Black man or as a Latino man. That can cause you to feel like I'm not good enough. I fight for everything. And those are just things that we have to educate ourselves and know the difference. Know that you are enough no matter what, and then watch God, change things.
Understanding that you are the difference. And that is so
Mhm.
powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Carla, for sharing all of that. Very helpful information. And I just, as we come to a close on this conversation, I just want to share that this is why, in order to overcome imposter
Yeah.
syndrome, you have to focus on self improvement instead of
Yes.
comparing yourself to others. Measure yourself against where you're trying to go. Look
Right.
up, grow. You have to grow up. I always say you have to think up in order to grow up. You got to
That's
think
right.
up. You have to do that. You have to embrace the journey of learning and development. And as you talked about those degrees, listen, everybody is not going to have an earned doctorate.
Mhm.
Everybody is not going to have degrees hanging on the wall. But one thing you can do, you can always get on YouTube. You can always Google. You can
Absolutely.
always learn something. You can always go
There's
for
no
another
excuse now. There's
certification.
no excuse. Whatever answer
Absolutely no.
and tips you're looking for, it's at your fingertips. Be a pro. Be a pro at YouTube. It's right there.
It's right there. And it's,
Mhm.
it costs absolutely nothing to learn
Nothing.
something new. So these are things I just want to run down just very quickly. Practice self compassion. Once again, treat your own self with kindness and
Yes.
understand that when you're facing challenges and setbacks, remember that making these mistakes are a part of the natural learning experience. It's a part of the growth process. So instead of looking for these opportunities to down yourself, make a pro and con list. Make a
That's right.
list of all of the things that you know that you're good at, the things that you
Mhm.
know that you are successful in. And then you just start saying, hey, these are some areas of improvement. There's not even really a con when it comes to measuring your life. You're saying, listen, I have some areas of improvement that I want to work on. And
Yes.
this is how I'm going to get this level of learning or this level of development. I need opportunities for growth rather than doubt. I would rather have opportunities of growth than to sit and wallow in self
Mhm.
doubt. We want to celebrate those successes. Every milestone we reach, Dr. C, I'm telling you, I don't care what it is, whatever the
Celebrate it.
milestone is that you reach. Yes,
Yes.
in order to overcome the imposter syndrome, you need to say, "Hey, listen, I have achieved this." Now, somebody else may have achieved what you may perceive as more.
But so
But
many have
again,
not.
where
So yeah.
but guess what? Somebody has not done that. And where you're
Mhm.
thinking that people are saying that you need to do more and be more, guess what? There are people who are actually looking up to you. And for every single
That's right.
opportunity you pass over, for every single time you allow self doubt and fear, that is actually a pseudo level of fear, for every single
Mhm.
time you allow that to creep in to stop you or that you entertain, you are now hindering the progress of
Yes.
someone else who is looking for your gift and what you actually offer to that particular platform, community, boardroom, team, whatever it is. You are neglecting that
You
a
are.
part of
That
yourself
stinking thinking
from
just now
somebody else.
smoldered. You're putting that blanket
Yes,
over the flame. Don't do that. Mhm.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, this is why we have to seek support. We have to make sure that we are handling, we have to combat these feelings of doubt and we have to encourage. I know that it sounds cliche, but you have to sometimes take your own hand, put it on your back, and you have to say, girl, listen, you're doing everything you can, you're doing the best you can, and with
Right.
what you have been given in your hands, you maximize that potential, you work the middle, you do all that you can to do the best you can in order to continue to boost your own confidence and
That's
remind
right.
yourself of your capabilities, no matter how small. A lot of us think, oh, the only thing I did was I did a live tonight. Oh, that's all I did. Or the only thing I did was I walked an extra 10 minutes. Whatever that success is, make sure
That
that
was
you are
movement.
celebrating it.
And
Yes,
slow and steady wins the
progress
race.
over
That is
perfection.
movement.
Yes, movement. And you got to
It is.
practice self-care. I know this thing became very big during the pandemic about self-care, but listen, when you start to guard your eye gates and your ear gates, when I
Mhm.
look at the ear, I looked at a diagram of an ear, Dr. C, and an ear looks just like a wound. It looks
Okay.
just like a wound. And
Yes.
so When you talk about seeds being planted inside of a womb, you think about that. When you have things coming into your ear gate, you have to understand that whatever you hear, whatever you see, it starts
Coming
to
out of that
seed in your
canal.
heart
Yes.
and it starts to
Uh-huh.
seed in your mind. And if they are negative thoughts, if it is not progressive, what happens is that it turns into this negative seed, and then you start to project that upon other people. And that's so unfair. It's so unfair to
It is.
project your negativity on others when you do not consistently remind yourself that life is just a process and
It really is
self-doubt
true that
is
hurting
something that
people
takes
hurt
time to
people.
overcome. That's
Absolutely. It's
absolutely
really,
right.
and I like that analogy because those things that are in your mind, it's going to come right on out that canal or in that canal, and it affects every part of you. That's why we have to be healthy and whole. There's nothing wrong with constantly gauging your reactions, gauging your performance to do better. That also stays away the negative thinking so that you can be proud of yourself. If you didn't prepare yourself and you know you have to go speak, you better pull some notes out and make sure you have everything lined up. There's nothing wrong with that. It shows that you prepared yourself. And that's what you have to do in life. The only way to combat any type of ism, any type of problem is preparation. Yes, the Lord can miraculously heal you, but many times the healing is like the scripture said, they were healed as they went. So as you went, you're looking at different podcasts, you're looking at YouTube, you're calling people, getting their advice. And the more you get good at it, how dare Satan tell you you're not good enough? Like, no, I am good at it. I worked at this one. I know this stuff is good because I prepared myself. That's a good way to overcome those negative thoughts and sensations.
Yes, and I am so excited. I know we can go on and on about this conversation, Dr. C. It's so much that we
Mhm.
can unpack, but I want to kind of leave this cliffhanger here because I am going to be doing much more of these for the corporate chick. We are church girls, but we're also in the corporate arena. And I want to make sure that we bring to light a lot of the things that we combat, not just in church, but
Mhm.
also in the corporate world. But we have to understand that these two boxes, they actually tend to transfer
They
very
do.
well with one another. But I want to leave you all with this. I want to say that it is important that you're patient with yourself. Do not be afraid to challenge yourself beyond your level of comfort to get to the zones of discovery. Whenever you start to discover who you are, continue to float down to the bottom of that level of discovery. And understand, it does not profit anyone to be suited in a wetsuit. You have oxygen tanks on you, you've got on goggles, you got on
Right.
flippers, and you're sitting on the land in a canoe. In order for all of that equipment to work, you have to get in the water.
Gotta get
And when
in.
you get to the middle of that water, you cannot be afraid to continue to go down. You're equipped. You already have it on you. You already have it in you. You cannot be
You
afraid of
can
what you
do it.
have been equipped to do. Now, yes, you're going to have to polish some skills. You're going to have to say, yes, I can do a lot of things, but this is the one thing or the three things that I know that I can do very well. And you put yourself in those areas and places to be utilized and to actually be celebrated and to ensure that those areas are completely polished and your expertise is what's actually carrying you. But you cannot be afraid to get to the bottom of the ocean. That's where the treasure is. Many times what
Yes.
happens is that we're fully equipped. We have all of the oxygen. We have on all of the equipment. We're in our wetsuits. We get in the middle of the ocean and we start flapping back up to the land because we know that that's our place of comfort. In order for you to discover truly who you are and who God has successfully made you to be something for other people, to be the answer to someone else's question, to be the solution for what they are asking in the boardroom, to be that solution, you cannot be standing on dry land in a wetsuit.
You got to get on in there. And the
Gotta
more
get
you
in there.
practice really does make perfect. You're having faith,
Absolutely.
Jump out there. You are way smarter than you thought you were. You are way more knowledgeable than you thought you were. So don't let someone else make you feel like you're not good enough. Don't let people make you feel like, oh, you're a woman or you're a woman of color and you're not good enough. That is not true. Get out there. Go ahead and press play on that podcast or whatever it is. Just do it. These tools nowadays are free. So market yourself. Get out there. Everyone has something to give. And don't let the imposter syndrome make you shoot yourself in the foot. You didn't even try because you thought you weren't enough. That is a fraud. No, the thoughts are the fraud. You are fine.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Do not self-defeat and self-destruct before you even get started. Dr. C, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for jumping in. And that's exactly what just everything we spoke about tonight is exactly what happened for this particular broadcast. Thank you so much for jumping in. For those of you who will come back and listen to this, or you jumped in and you heard something that you know would be a help to someone else, make sure that you share this particular podcast with someone else and let them know that you too can overcome the imposter syndrome. Know that who God has created you to be, you are more than enough through Him. You have already been given all of the tools that you need in order to succeed. So let's move forward. And let's go in the strength of God. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. Dr. C, it has been my pleasure to have you on this platform with me. Thank you so much. You have absolutely no idea how I feel that you have, joined this conversation tonight. But thank you all so much. It has been real and it's been really well. Dr. C, do you have any last words to share with us at all?
Stay in the boat. If you move, you lose. So stay in the boat and keep going. If you move, you got to start all over again. Stay in the boat. Don't give up. You got this.
Don't give up. You got this. Thank you all so much. See you at another time. Yes.